For this card, I actually want to make one of these roll-up flowers. So the way that I do this, not necessarily the way everyone else does it, but this is the way I do it. Take either a cotton wool bud, like so, or a cocktail stick. And I'm using a glue gun because I find that's the easiest way to make sure that my glue is set quickly. So you want it secure, and you want to put glue at regular intervals as you wind this up. Now, if I wind it up first of all dry, it gives it a little bit of help, because if you're doing it straight off, it can sometimes go ways that you really don't want it to go. And if you curl it up once, it kind of gets some kind of memory into it, and it just makes it easier the next time that you roll it. So you wind it up and you'll end up with a lovely little flower, like so. And the theory is that you take away this stick, you can cut it off, whatever, and then this gets glued over the base. Now the trouble is, if you do that, this is a very deep flower and this is going to stick out that far from your card. Not a good idea. So I do it most of the way the same, but there's just a little bit that I do at the end that you may not have otherwise done. So if you got a fine tip glue gun like I have, then use that. If not, use whatever glue you are happy with using, that you know will actually stick as soon as it contacts. All right, because I haven't got 4 hands, I really can't hold it and roll it and, you know, stop the rest of it from unrolling while I'm working. So as long as I can do that, I'm happy. I'm not taking much notice of whether the petals are lined up or not lined up. I'm just rolling away. It'll sort itself out in the end. But because I've got hot glue gun, it's not an issue. I can just roll it and keep going. And I'm just going to put a little bit just there. And you notice I'm not going to bother with this bit here. So I have my flower, and you can mess around moving the petals around if you want. I quite like them so that they're not that regular, because they look a bit more realistic if they're not entirely regular. So now what I want to do is remove this stalk, but I cannot just pull it out, it's not possible. So a pair of scissors, and I can cut that off quite easily. Now if I were going to put this on, say, a box or whatever, then I would put some glue over the top of this and it would go on the box, and that's fine. But I said this is way too deep to go on a card, for my taste anyway. And so I'm just going to take the scissors to it, holding it tightly, take the scissors to it, cut that load off, and then you can apply the glue to that. And as long as you have a non-stick mat, you can just push it directly onto your mat. This will stop the glue from being bulky, and hopefully it will also mean that everything gets secured in your flower. So I can take that off now, take the strings off that are formed. And I can open out my flower as I wish. Okay, so that's how I tend to do them. So I don't do very many of these, but on occasion I do. Now, depending on what I'm actually going to do with the card, I will either put a big lump of glue in there and put tiny little seed pearls over it, or I'll put Diamante in the centre, or whatever. I haven't finished this one off because I'm not sure what colour I'm going to do the card yet. I may decide to colour some of it, I may not. So I've left it plain for the moment. For the leaves that I've used on this card, I've got a simple leaf cutout. Now I've been using embroidery backing to cut out my flowers and indeed the leaves. this has been tinted very slightly with inks a while ago, probably sprayed it on or whatever, and so it is slightly mint green tinted, only very slightly. So first of all, what I'm going to do is, using this sort of icing tool, it's a tool frequently used by cake decorators, I'm just going to scratch out veins either side, and then all I do using the back of the knife part of it is put a big vein across the middle, and that's it, done. Now if you want to, you can colour them in different ways. You can make them autumnal if you use golds and greens, and if you want to, you can actually screw them up and then unwrap them to make them look more weathered. But that's the basic way to make the leaves. Now I've made also a tiny version of the flower, and as you can see, I've actually put some little beads in the centre of it. Now the way I do that is I put a bead of hot glue in the centre, and then I literally tip the flower upside down and tip it into the beads, press it in, and then it comes out like so. And while it's still hot, you can mould it a little bit. But the reason I use the hot glue is because those will actually stay there much better than they would if I used anything else. The other thing that I want to do before I put this card together, I've already put a leaf onto the back of this flower, but I decided that I want to do a little bit of heat embossing on just the edges of the flower, and I can do that because embroidery fabric or embroidery backing is completely heat resistant. So what I'm going to do is just go around the edges with a Versamark type pad, and just rotate and go round. Doesn't matter if I'm losing the odd bead. And then I'm going to use the leaf to dip this into my embossing powder, and this happens to be platinum. So it'll be an interesting experiment to see how it comes out when it's actually embossed. But I think that's probably enough. I don't think I want too much on there because it'll be very heavy. Make the flower look way too dark and heavy if I do too much of it. So I'm just going to get my heat gun out and melt the embossing powder. I'm angling the heat away from the centre because I don't want it to melt all the glue that I've got in the middle. And I've got to let this cool for a while because the heat has actually melted the glue holding those beads in place. And the last thing I want is my flower completely going to pieces. That would not be nice. The next part of my card is going to be this background cutout that I've done, and I've cut out a piece of card that I've previously decorated with white and silver heat embossing and coloured inks, and I suspect that the tutorial for how to do this will be the one before this, so if you get my drift. Now what I want to do is to put that frame on top of there. Now because I've got heat embossing on this lower piece, I don't want to use normal glue because it's probably going to have difficulty sticking. So again, I'm actually going to use my heat gun. Now I've designed this so that it will fit in there pretty well, but what I'm going to do is to hold it in place first of all and just lift up a corner to dab a little bit of glue on it, and then let it flop back, hand down, little dab of glue, push down. So I've got my card base here, and I want to put that onto there. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is use my frame, simply because I am just so bad at lining things up otherwise. I have a chronic problem with lining things up when it comes to matting. Everything else, fine. Matting, big problem. Now, this is designed to fit in this frame precisely. So what I can do, I can put my hot glue, if I want to, or my tape around these edges. So that's looking good. And I want to use my hot glue gun to put the flowers on as well, because they won't stay on very easily if I don't use hot glue. So I need to just decide where those are going. Now I've got some embossing powder on there which I really don't want to show, so I'm going to be cheeky, and what I'm going to do is just fold this back, put a dab of glue there, fold it back on itself, another dab of glue there. It will shorten the leaf, but it will hide the bit that I don't want seen. And there we have my card, all finished, because I'm not going to put a sentiment on this one. 2 reasons: I don't know what occasion I'm going to give it for, and secondly, I think sometimes putting a sentiment on a fancy card like that can ruin it. So that's it, that's the card done. I hope you like it, hope you give it a try. The file will be linked below as usual. Thanks for watching, take care now, bye bye.